Hi, this is Doug from Dynamic Computing, and welcome to episode 56 of 10-Minute Amiga Retrocast. This week, I want to talk about a couple of cool items that I've gotten in the mail in the past week. Number one is going to be a case for my beautiful little classic 520 accelerator that I use in my Amiga 1000. It's the one that I reviewed a couple of months back that works fantastic on an Amiga 1000 or an Amiga 500. Now, I've got a little case for it I want to talk to you about. Second is the boxed version of Mini Zorro that I reviewed about 2 weeks ago. I got the box in from Jose, and I want to do a little opening and show you what's inside. Let's go ahead and start with the Mini Zorro. So, of course, Mini Zorro is available totally free if you just send an email to Jose, and I'll put his email right down here. He'll send you the ADF file free, but for a really small amount, which is like 10, 15 bucks, he will actually send you the boxed version. Now, the box is a non-standard sized box. It looks like he just bought a bunch of cool little boxes, and he put stickers on the front, and he put stickers on the back, showing everything about it, which is a perfectly acceptable way to do it because of how little he charges for it. The stickers are all placed nicely. It has the information both in Spanish and in English, which is really nice, and some nice pictures on there. And he does all this artwork himself. Once we open the little guy up, we have a Mini Zorro comic, which I mentioned in my review. And it does, just as I suspected it does, goes over the basic story, gives you a couple of little clues on how to start the game. Now, Jose did all of the artwork himself. Now, this is an English translation to Spanish, so there's going to be a couple little, maybe phrasing issues because it looks like it was run through a translator. But that's fine. Perfectly readable. The artwork is absolutely gorgeous. So that's really cool that he gives us that. Then we get a full manual in English or what other language he offers. And it gives you information about items in the game, the little horsey. It gives you information about how to play the game. All of the details about the enemies, which is pretty cool. So he supplies you with a little manual. Now, here's the cool part. We get our Mini Zorro stickers, and you can slap these on your forehead, put them on your computer, whatever you want to do. But really nice examples of Jose's artwork here. And, of course, we get our floppy disk, 3.5-inch floppy disk with Mini Zorro on it, and this is the latest version. This is an updated version of the one that I reviewed. And last but not least, a Zorro sword. Hua, 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 Zorro! So, endless hours of fun you can have with your Mini Zorro sword, abusing your cat or whatever you want to do with it. So all in all, pretty cool for, $12, $15, whatever it translates out to be. Nice little thing you can put on your shelf for a fun little game. Next up, I want to talk about one of my favorite little items, which is my classic 520 accelerator made by Irix Labs. I'll put a link to their website down here, as well as amigastore.eu, which is a great place to get them from. And in a nutshell, I'll just go over the features again for those of you who haven't watched my review. It's a 6820 card with 8 megabytes of RAM, and it has a CF card you can use as a bootable compact flash card. It has an SD card slot for a hot swappable SD card. It has an actual IDE channel on it, which is shared master slave with this. So if you want to hook up an external CD-ROM or something like that, it absolutely will work with it. It also has flashable ROM on here, so if you want to put your Amiga OS ROM right on here, it'll boot right to a newer ROM. Very nice device. Uses the standard Amiga 500 side slot, which of course also works as an Amiga 1000 slot. It's just with an Amiga 500, it plugs in the left-hand side. An Amiga 1000, it plugs in the right-hand side. It just literally flips it around. Now, the case has been done by amigastore.eu. It is 3D printed. So as you can see, it is absolutely got the 3D printing marks on it. You can tell it was done like that. You know, it could be sanded down and painted if you really want to. I don't think I'm going to bother with it. It matches fairly well with the case, as I'll show you in a minute. HC520 printed on the front, which is nice. It has all the accessibility that you might need on it for the CF cards and the SD cards. And for the less than $20 that it costs, I think it's like $16, $17 once you do the conversions. Pretty nice little thing. Let's go ahead and put our card in here and see how it goes. We've just got a couple of screws on the sides here. Nicely, he provided them with them all screwed together, because as you know, when you 3D print, it does not do any screw holes, so sometimes screws you kind of have to wiggle your way in there. And it's got printed right on the side, amigastore.eu, which is kind of nice. Now that is a great company to work with. I've enjoyed purchasing from them. The owner is fantastic. He generally includes a nice personalized little card. Every time you place an order with him, he'll send you a nice little personalized card, which is really kind of a nice touch. And remember, it's amigastore.eu, not amigastore.com. That would redirect you someplace else that you do not want to be redirected to when you're trying to shop with Amigastore. Pop the top off. Now, I'm not sure what the purpose of this little hoodinkus is there. Maybe for running out IDE cables. If you're using an external IDE on your machine, you'd run the cable right out there in order to plug in your IDE CD-ROM. I think that's probably what it's for. Take out the card, set her in here. I'm going to remove these posts. I think I'm going to need to. Yep. And then we're going to be able to screw the board in right there and right there. So I'm going to go ahead and get a tool and remove these posts carefully. Okay, so we've got the posts out now, and we'll see how this little guy fits in here. Looks like we're going to have to take out these two screws, mount the board in there, and then put the screws back. So we'll go ahead and take care of that. All right, line everything up. That looks good, and that looks good. Yeah, the screw holes line up just fine. So we're going to get those screws put back in there. There, just had to get the screws initially set in the little holes there. Needed a little better angle to do that. But once I did that, you just have your two screws. Screw down there. That's in there fairly tight. Now let's get this thing put back together. So I did not want to torture you by filming putting all four of those screws back in, but I assure you it was a thoroughly riveting experience. Boom. So you can see, looks pretty good. It's in there nice and tight. Has some nice ventilation holes. Doesn't get very hot, but it has some nice ventilation holes. You have full accessibility for the CF card and the SD card right there. Let's see if they fit in okay. Well, going to want to be careful. There we go. Yep, that fits in just fine. That slots in just fine. It's got enough play at the top where you can put it in too high and have it fall inside the case. There are a couple of jumpers inside here too that relate to the flash memory on here. You can erase the flash memory, you can set it to program mode. So if you want to mess around with the flash memory after you initially flash this, you will have to take it out of the case in order to do that. But that's no big deal. You just take out the 4 screws, adjust your jumpers, put the top back on. Really not a big deal. Overall, I think it looks pretty good. Let's try it out in an Amiga 500. Okay, so this is my Amiga 500. The coloring of it is fairly close to the original coloring. I mean, it's not horribly browned or oranged or anything like that, but it's not perfect. And you can see the color matches okay. It's certainly not a perfect match for the original Amiga color, but it's pretty close. I mean, as far as colors go. Does just fine. Let's see how she slots into the side. Yep, perfectly level. And that's how she looks when she is on there. Let's take a little off-camera tour. Not bad, really. Not bad. And then, of course, it's got the bay in the back in case you want to put an IDE cable out the back to an external hard drive or external CD-ROM if you want to. Easy accessibility to the CF cards. I've got no complaints. Now let's see what she looks like in an Amiga 1000. She is a pretty little system, isn't she? Yeah, I sure do love this machine. Now, as I mentioned, the expansion bay is exactly the same as the Amiga 500, but it's facing the other direction. So you are not going to have front access to your CF cards and SD cards. It's not as pretty this way, but let's see how it works. I'm going to go ahead and see if she fits in. Okay, as you can see, these little corner pieces here right on the bottom are a very, very tight fit in the Amiga 1000 case. There is no play there. There is no wiggle room. It has to slot straight in, but it absolutely fits. Now, you'll also notice that she's risen up off the ground a little bit, just like it is with a regular Amiga 1000 card. So you're not getting any support down here. Now, I'd like to come up with a clever idea to give some support here. I'm probably just going to pick up a piece of plastic and maybe put a little screw hole in it just to give it some support, since this will be the main machine she's in. But you may have seen from some of my tweets in the past, I find that these little pizza tables are just about the right height to support the card. So I often put a little pizza table under there. And who knows, maybe I'll just glue 2 of those on there. Why not? Have a little fun in life. But on the Amiga 1000, absolutely not as attractive. But it's going to offer more protection than just having the card flopping loose like I've had it in the past. Still boots up just fine. Makes perfect connection. Yep, no problems at all. So what are my final thoughts? Well, on the Mini Zorro, I think that it's a great investment for something to put on your shelf for, less than 20 bucks, where else you're going to find a full game, which is actually very fun. I enjoy it quite a bit. I think it's absolutely worth it. For the 520 cover, classic 520 cover, I would say if you've got an Amiga 500, 100% order it from amigastore.eu and you'll be happy as a clam, because it fits and it integrates perfectly with it. If you're an Amiga 1000 owner like myself, or my buddy Dan James in Phoenix just picked up one of these cards, I would say think about it. Maybe there's a better solution that could be done, could be printed specifically for the Amiga 1000. But if you don't want to wait for it, it'll absolutely offer extra protection. It absolutely does fit in here. You're just going to want to somehow prop it up so you don't accidentally put pressure on it and snap it. Both of them, you know, I hardly paid anything for these things, you know. Less than 20 bucks for that, less than 20 bucks for this, and I'm a happy boy. Thumbs up for both of them. I'd like to thank my wonderful patrons for supporting me and being able to help me afford little things like this so I can do little reviews on them. But until next time, this is Doug from 10 Minute Amiga Retrocast, signing out.